Even decades later, Forrest Gump continues to capture hearts with its emotional storytelling and unforgettable moments. But behind the film's polished surface lies a rich tapestry of behind-the-scenes secrets that add a whole new layer to its legacy. From the real-life spark behind Forrest's legendary run to the unexpected voices behind iconic cameos, the film is packed with trivia that even longtime fans might not know. And here's a twist you probably missed. There's one massive blooper hidden in plain sight, and it flew under the radar for years. Let's dive in. Starting with number 20, Lieutenant Dan's disability. Lieutenant Dan remains one of the film's most striking and unforgettable characters. Brought to life by Gary Sinise, Dan's story is one of loss, anger, and redemption. After losing his legs in Vietnam, his transformation is not only emotional, it was also a technical marvel for its time. So how did they pull it off so convincingly? The answer lies in clever visual effects. Sinise wore blue fabric over his legs while filming, allowing digital artists to erase them in post-production. It was groundbreaking CGI, subtle, yet powerful, and it helped audiences fully believe in Dan's struggle and resilience. Gary Sinise's performance didn't just rely on technology. His portrayal of a soldier grappling with the loss of purpose was raw and deeply human. Special effects amplified his emotional arc, helping create a character who starts broken but finds meaning and peace. It's a performance that still resonates with audiences today. And that's just scratching the surface. What truly makes Forrest Gump iconic is how it seamlessly blends fiction with history, weaving Forrest into pivotal 20th century moments through cutting-edge effects and sharp editing. Take Elvis Presley's cameo, a scene filled with charm, mystery, and a surprise twist. When a young Elvis visits Forrest's home and mimics his dance moves, the physical performance comes from actor Peter Dobson. Here's the catch: the voice you hear isn't Dobson's. It's actually Kurt Russell. Yes, that Kurt Russell, who famously portrayed Elvis in a 1979 biopic. Although his voice work in Forrest Gump wasn't credited, he recorded fresh lines that were seamlessly integrated into the scene. The result? A clever historical nod and an Easter egg for sharp-eared fans. And here's the kicker: the secret stayed hidden for over a decade. It wasn't until 2016 that Russell confirmed in a GQ interview that he had provided the voice, revealing that director Robert Zemeckis approached him to fix a subpar original track. Ironically, in the Elvis biopic, Russell didn't do the singing. That honor went to Ronnie McDowell. It's the kind of cinematic sleight of hand that would be hard to pull off today. But back then, the blending of fact and fiction helped reinforce Forrest Gump's magical charm, showing us history from the eyes of a man who never sought greatness but found it anyway. One of the most iconic of these, Forrest meets history, moments involves President John F. Kennedy. In the film, Forrest is invited to the White House as part of the All-America team and meets JFK. Here's where the lines between fact and fiction blur. In real life, the app didn't announce the All-America team until after Kennedy's assassination in 1963. So technically, that meeting never could have happened. But that's kind of the point. These fictional moments serve a larger purpose. They insert Forrest into turning points in American history, creating a surreal but poignant effect that elevates the film's narrative. Through this lens, Forrest becomes a symbolic figure, not just a man, but a witness to history. The joy of the film isn't in strict accuracy, but in the way it captures the spirit of a generation through the journey of an unlikely hero. And just when you think the film has shown you everything, there's more. Let's talk about one of the film's most quiet yet powerful symbols, the park bench. You know, the one where Forrest shares his life story over a box of chocolates. That bench, located in Chippewa Square in Savannah, Georgia, became an accidental icon. Set against a charming southern backdrop, it served as the stage for many of the film's most touching moments. But it wasn't just about choosing a pretty spot. There was serious planning behind the scenes. The filmmakers positioned the bench to face Bull Street for perfect framing. In fact, Savannah police even had to reverse traffic flow around the square to make the bus scenes work. Production used 4 identical benches, rotating them as needed for different shots and angles, all to keep Forrest's story visually grounded in one familiar place. After the cameras stopped rolling, the legacy of Forrest Gump's famous bench continued to grow. One of the 4 fiberglass benches used during filming was gifted to the city of Savannah, where it now rests in the Savannah History Museum. Though fans can't sit on it, the bench draws countless visitors who want to stand where Forrest once sat, telling his story between bites of chocolate. Film enthusiasts can even join a guided Forrest Gump tour, which includes a visit to the exact square where those iconic scenes were captured. As for the other benches, they've practically vanished into legend. Like the ruby slippers from The Wizard of Oz, these props have fetched sky-high prices at auction and remain prized collector's items. Despite being simple in appearance, the bench has become a timeless symbol, both in cinema and in the hearts of fans around the world. Number 16. Jimmy Carter's Heat Exhaustion, a blink and you miss it historical reference. Remember Forrest's epic run across America? During one brief scene, as he jogs past a small-town barbershop, a news report on TV mentions that President Jimmy Carter has suffered from heat exhaustion. This real event took place on September 15, 1979. And its inclusion subtly anchors Forrest's journey in actual history. But there's a catch. According to the film's timeline, Forrest begins his cross-country run on July 5, 1976, months before Carter officially became president. That timeline inconsistency may seem like a mistake, but it's really part of the film's charm. A playful blending of real events and fictional storytelling that places Forrest in pivotal historical moments, even when the dates don't quite line up. Next up, the run that broke Tom Hanks. At a New Yorker Live panel, Hanks opened up about the grueling process behind one of the film's most unforgettable sequences, Forrest's long-distance run across the country. Though it played as a montage on screen, filming it was anything but quick or easy. The production team crisscrossed America to capture the sweeping beauty of real landscapes. For 27 straight days, Hanks would get into character, run for hours in various locations, then hop a flight to do it all over again in a new setting. It was physically draining, mentally exhausting, and left Hanks running on fumes. That exhaustion carried into one of the most dialogue-heavy parts of the movie, the park bench scenes. Despite their importance, those scenes were filmed in just a day and a half. Hanks recalled struggling to stay focused through the extensive lines, with fatigue threatening to derail one of the film's most iconic storytelling devices. Speaking of those bench monologues, ever wonder about Forrest's accent? It's one of the character's most distinctive traits, and Hanks didn't turn to a traditional dialect coach to get it right. Instead, he modeled it after the real speech patterns of young Forrest, played by Mississippi-born Michael Connor Humphreys. Humphreys' soft southern drawl was authentic and unpolished, and Hanks committed to mirroring it for the adult version of the character. This created a seamless voice transition from child to adult and added another layer of believability to the role. The result? Critical acclaim and an Oscar for Best Actor. And Humphreys himself received recognition for his part, winning a Young Artist Award. Their collaboration helped shape a character who was not only believable but beloved. 13. Tom Hanks didn't take a paycheck for Forrest Gump, and it paid off big time. Instead of a standard salary, Hanks opted for a deal that gave him a percentage of the film's profits, a risky move that reflected Forrest's own knack for accidental financial success. At the time, it was a gamble. No one could predict the film's eventual box office dominance, over $678 million worldwide. But when it became a global hit, Hanks' gamble turned into a windfall. By the time the dust settled, he reportedly earned around $65 million, far more than a flat fee would have brought. 12. Bubbas Lip. It wasn't real, but the performance was. Benjamin Buford, Bubba, Blue, played by Michael T. Williamson, became one of the film's most beloved characters, known for his gentle demeanor and shrimp obsession. Prominent lower lip became a visual trademark, but it wasn't natural. To achieve Bubba's look, the filmmakers used a custom prosthetic. The exaggerated lip was carefully crafted to blend naturally with Williamson's face, and it was so convincing that many fans assumed it was real. But the true magic was in Williamson's performance, soft-spoken, soulful, and deeply human. Bubba may have had a brief time on screen, but he left a lasting impression. His legacy even lives on in the real world, through a shrimp empire built in his name. Yes, the Bubba Gump Shrimp Company is real, and it all started with the movie. After Forrest Gump became a blockbuster, Paramount Pictures and the Rusty Pelican Restaurant Company teamed up to bring Bubba's dream to life. The first restaurant opened in Monterey, California, in 1996, and today, there are over 43 locations across the globe. The restaurants serve up more than seafood. They deliver a full Forrest Gump experience. From film memorabilia to menu items inspired by the movie, it's a nostalgic dive into Gump's world. And here's a fun twist. Actor Chris Pratt was discovered while working at a Bubba Gump shrimp restaurant in Maui in 2000. His charm and quick wit caught the eye of a director, launching the career of one of today's biggest stars. Now let's shift gears and dig into some of the more serious and surprising details behind Forrest Gump. Number 10. The war scenes. Believe it or not, the intense Vietnam War sequences weren't filmed in Southeast Asia. They were shot on a golf course in South Carolina. Sound unbelievable? That's where movie magic comes in. With extensive CGI, the production team transformed the open greens into a convincing jungle teeming with dense, tropical foliage. To add realism, palmetto trees were brought in to boost the authenticity of the landscape. This clever blend of digital effects, practical set design, and smart location scouting paid off. Viewers were fully transported to the steamy, unpredictable terrain of Vietnam. In reality, Crip Island and Hunting Island State Park, both off South Carolina's coast, stood in for the war-torn jungle, proving once again that movie sets are rarely what they seem. Number 9. The Stand in the Schoolhouse Door, a haunting echo of American history. Forrest Gump doesn't shy away from placing its lovable lead into key historical moments, and one of the most striking is the integration of the University of Alabama in 1963. The film shows Forrest as a student athlete during the moment Alabama Governor George Wallace attempts to block two black students, Vivian Malone and James Hood, from enrolling. Wallace's infamous stand was a dramatic protest against desegregation, meant to defy federal law. And just like in the movie, President John F. Kennedy intervened, sending federal troops to enforce the court order and ensure the students' safe entry. It was a real turning point in the civil rights movement, and the film recreated it with powerful subtlety. On June 11, 1963, Wallace physically positioned himself in a doorway at the university, broadcasting his opposition to racial integration. U.S. Deputy Attorney General Nicholas Katzenbach, sent by JFK, demanded Wallace step aside, and when he finally did, it marked a symbolic victory for civil rights and federal authority. Number 8. The Vietnam War scenes were almost very different, and far darker. In an earlier draft of the script, Forrest Gump depicted every member of Forrest and Bubba's platoon as having below-average IQs, a reference to a real, controversial practice during the war. Historically, the US military allowed low IQ individuals to enlist and sometimes grouped them together. Though this was intended to ease command challenges, it was later seen as ethically questionable. The Army objected to this portrayal, leading filmmakers to revise the script. Final version, only Forrest and Bubba are portrayed as mentally challenged, while the rest of the platoon appears typical. The film earned praise for its war realism. Military historian Bill Allison noted how the chaotic ambush scenes reflected real Viet Cong tactics, surprise attacks in dense terrain that avoided direct confrontation. From the never-ending rain to slang like humping, military jargon for marching, the film struck a careful balance between cinematic tone and historical authenticity. But while the film touches on the realities of war, it does so with a gentler hand. The Vietnam War was the longest in US history, a conflict that left deep scars and many questions. Forrest Gump brushes against those truths, reminding viewers of the war's toll without diving too far into its darker depths. Now here's a behind-the-scenes fact you likely never noticed, and it's hiding in plain sight. In the famous scene where young Forrest boards the school bus, he's rejected by two kids before Jenny invites him to sit beside her. That brief moment is rich with meaning and family ties. The boy who snubs Forrest is Alexander Zemeckis, son of director Robert Zemeckis. The girl, Elizabeth Hanks, daughter of Tom Hanks. This small scene features a literal passing of the torch, a personal moment embedded in one of the film's most touching memories. Jenny's offer marks the beginning of a lifelong friendship that becomes the emotional core of the story. Jenny, whom Forrest later describes as like an angel, becomes both a companion and emotional anchor in his life. She teaches him to read, to climb trees, and helps him navigate the confusing world around him. Meanwhile, her own life is riddled with hardship, including an abusive father and the early death of her mother. Jenny, Forrest represented safety. For Forrest, she was everything. Their bond, like peas and carrots, remains one of the most tender relationships in cinematic history. Number 6. Imagine Forrest Gump without Tom Hanks, because that almost happened. It might sound unthinkable today, but several other A-list actors were considered before Hanks landed the role. John Travolta, Bill Murray, and Chevy Chase were all offered the part, and all turned it down. Travolta, in particular, later admitted he regretted saying no. Whether it was fate, luck, or timing, it's hard to imagine anyone else stepping into Forrest's well-worn sneakers. Some casting decisions can make or break a film, and Forrest Gump came this close to being a very different movie. In a 2007 interview with MTV, John Travolta reflected on turning down the role of Forrest. While he expressed pride in his career path, he admitted to feeling some regret, and he wasn't the only one who passed on a major part. The role of Bubba was also shopped around before landing with Michael T. Williamson. Actors David Alan Grier, Ice Cube, and Dave Chappelle were all considered. Ice Cube declined because he was uncomfortable portraying a character with a disability. Chappelle, on the other hand, feared that the role might play into negative racial stereotypes, a concern he later admitted may have cost him a career-defining opportunity. Even David Alan Grier publicly expressed regret years later. On a 2018 episode of Busy Tonight, he reflected on what might have been. Similarly, Ice Cube, then balancing an acting and rap career, acknowledged the film's massive success left him second-guessing his decision to pass. Jenny Curran's role had its own dramatic casting journey. Jodie Foster, Nicole Kidman, and Demi Moore were all considered for the part before Robin Wright ultimately brought Jenny to life. Her haunting, layered performance earned her Golden Globe and SAG Award nominations, and solidified Jenny as the emotional counterpoint to Forrest's innocence. And what about Lieutenant Dan? Kevin Bacon was originally in the running, but it was Gary Sinise who landed the role and delivered one of the film's most powerful performances, transforming a character defined by bitterness and loss into one of resilience and redemption. Now here's a moment that nearly never happened: Forrest's legendary cross-country run. It's one of the most unforgettable sequences in the film, but it almost didn't make it in at all. According to Tom Hanks, Paramount Pictures initially refused to fund the sequence, citing budget concerns. Director Robert Zemeckis, however, believed it was essential to the story. Determined not to let it go, Zemeckis made a bold move. He approached Hanks directly. The two struck a deal. They would split the cost themselves in exchange for a larger share of the profits. Hanks agreed, and their gamble paid off. What resulted was one of the film's most iconic moments, a 7-minute montage that became a metaphor for grief, self-discovery, and healing. Forrest's spontaneous decision to just start running resonated with millions. Along the way, he accidentally inspires bumper stickers, slogans like "Shit happens," and even the creation of the smiley face t-shirt. As people join him, Forrest quietly becomes a symbol of something bigger, and yet, in classic Gump fashion, he simply stops one day and says, "I'm pretty tired. I think I'll go home now." Number 4. The feather scene. One of the most iconic and symbolically rich moments in Forrest Gump is the feather scene. But here's something you probably didn't know: the feather's mesmerizing flight wasn't created using CGI. Instead, filmmakers used a real feather, filmed against a blue screen. Several takes of the feather's flight were captured, then digitally combined to create the smooth, flowing motion we see on screen. This approach provided a more organic look compared to pure CGI. The feather first appears in the opening sequence, floating gently through the air before landing at Forrest's feet. Forrest picks it up and places it in his suitcase, marking the beginning of his story. This moment sets the tone for the entire narrative, representing Forrest's philosophy on life, accepting the randomness of fate and going with the flow. The feather reappears at the end, after Forrest sends his son off to school, further underscoring its role as a metaphor for his journey. Just like the feather, life often changes course based on the whims of fate. Number 3. The flu. Here's a behind-the-scenes detail that shows Tom Hanks's dedication. During the football scenes, Hanks was battling the flu. Running the length of the field over and over again is grueling enough when you're healthy, but doing it while sick, that's dedication. Despite his symptoms, Hanks powered through, a true reflection of Forrest's own resilience. This was crucial for portraying Forrest's athletic abilities and his unexpected rise in college football. Interestingly, this mirrors the real-life events that inspired the film. Just as Forrest perseveres through obstacles, Hanks's performance while battling illness adds authenticity and depth to the character, capturing his ability to excel, even in the face of adversity. Number 2. There could have been a sequel. Yes, there was a sequel to Forrest Gump in development for years. Based on Winston Groom's 1995 book Gump and Amp Company, the sequel followed Forrest as he dealt with the cultural impact of his own life story, including a film about him being made by Robert Zemeckis. In this version, Forrest was less successful, with the Bubbas Gump Shrimp Company now defunct and Forrest working as a janitor in a New Orleans strip club. The sequel was planned to take Forrest on even more bizarre adventures, including selling fake encyclopedias and trying to reconnect with his son. While the premise seemed promising, the sequel never made it past development. It seemed the magic of the original was hard to replicate, and sometimes, a story is better left untouched. Number 1. The most famous line in the movie. Here's the biggest surprise of all. The most famous line from Forrest Gump, "My name is Forrest Gump. People call me Forrest Gump," wasn't in the script at all. It was an ad-lib by Tom Hanks. This improvisation brought a fresh layer of charm and authenticity to Forrest's character, and it quickly became one of the film's most memorable phrases. This line perfectly embodies Forrest's straightforward, unassuming nature, and it's a testament to the magic of improvisation on set. The chemistry between Hanks and the character was so strong that this moment, born of spontaneity, became a hallmark of the film. Well, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so you never miss an update. Also, check out the video on your screen right now, it's truly unbelievable.